Concrete bunkers, MG-42 nests with overlapping fields of fire, 5 million mines, steel obstacles for 200 miles of coastline. On paper, the Atlantic Wall should have thrown the invasion back into the sea. It didn't. So how was D-Day actually won? In this video, we're breaking down the defense Germany actually built, the doctrine it was supposed to follow, and the exact points where that system came apart. Modern static defense runs on 4 core principles. What makes the Atlantic Wall worth studying is that Germany's own commanders couldn't agree on whether to follow them, and that argument decided the battle before a single landing craft touched the sand. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit subscribe. Principle 1. Trade space for time. A defender doesn't need to hold every meter, just make the attacker pay for it, buying time for reinforcements and the right moment to strike back. Rommel rejected this outright. He'd watched Allied air power tear apart German movement in North Africa, and he was certain that once the invasion got off the beach, any German force trying to maneuver in the open would be hunted from the sky. His answer was to stop the enemy at the waterline, or not at all. No trading space, no falling back. Principle 2. Defense in depth. A single line is fragile, and multiple layered lines are supposed to force the attacker to reset again and again. The Atlantic Wall barely had this. Most of its real combat power sat in a thin crust right at the coast. Rommel wanted it that way, on purpose, for the same reason as above. Rundstedt and the panzer commanders wanted a genuine second line inland, with armor held ready to counterattack once the main landing was identified. Berlin never fully picked a side, and the wall ended up a compromise that satisfied neither doctrine. Principle 3. Fire superiority. This one, Germany actually built well. Machine gun positions like the strong point above Omaha Beach were sited to fire along the beach rather than straight out to sea, enfilade fire, so a soldier moving up the sand had almost nowhere that wasn't covered by someone else's gun. Individually survivable, collectively close to a kill zone. Principle 4. Economy of force. Forward positions are meant to detect, delay, and report while the real combat power waits fresh in reserve. On paper, Germany had this too. Static coastal divisions up front, panzer divisions held back. The catch was who controlled that reserve. Several of the best positioned panzer divisions couldn't move without personal authorization from Hitler's headquarters, which meant the single most important decision of the entire battle sat several ranks above the officers actually watching the coast. Defenders are usually assumed to need a fraction of the attacker's numbers to hold. Prepared positions can handle a 3-to-1 disadvantage or better. That math only works if the defender knows where the attack is landing. Germany didn't. An Allied deception campaign had built a fake army group threatening Calais, and German intelligence stayed convinced for weeks that Normandy was a diversion. All the fire superiority in the world doesn't help if you've got your best reserves watching the wrong beach. It also helped that the German command didn't expect anything that week at all. Their own meteorologists were reading rougher seas and low cloud than the Allies were, and rough seas meant no invasion, at least by the usual playbook. Rommel took the forecast seriously enough to leave for Germany to celebrate his wife's birthday, planning to use the trip to also press Hitler in person for more freedom to move the panzer reserves. He was hundreds of miles from Normandy when the first reports started coming in. Terrain is a co-defender if you choose the right ground, and Normandy gave Germany plenty to work with. Low, gently sloping beaches meant landing craft had to cross a huge stretch of open sand under fire before reaching any cover. Cliffs at points like Pointe du Hoc put German guns on high ground with long, clean fields of fire. Rivers on both flanks, the Weyer in the west and the Orne in the east, offered exactly the kind of anchored line that's hard to simply walk around, at least against an enemy coming by land. Nobody had built a defense meant to stop an enemy from dropping in from above those rivers instead. Further inland, dense hedgerow country would eventually slow the advance for weeks. None of this was wasted on the Germans. They built their strong points to use every bit of it. Fortification here worked in layers, same as any static defense. Layer 1, the individual position. Rifle pits dug into the dunes above the beach with overhead cover and a firing step. Layer 2, crew-served weapons, the MG-42 nest doing the enfilade work already mentioned, the actual spine of the beach defense. Layer 3, connecting trenches, linking the strong points together so a single position overrun didn't mean the whole line was open. Layer 4, obstacles, and this is where the wall got creative. Steel hedgehogs, Belgian gate barriers, and mined wooden stakes nicknamed Rommel's asparagus, all positioned at different heights so that whatever the tide happened to be, something was waiting just under the waterline to rip open a landing craft. It's also why the Allies insisted on landing near low tide despite the extra open sand it meant crossing on foot. Low tide put most of these obstacles in plain sight, where combat engineers could actually blow gaps in them before the follow-on waves arrived. Layer 5, the bunkers, thick reinforced concrete casemates housing the heavy guns, built specifically to survive the bombardment everyone knew was coming first. Weapons were meant to cover every range. Rifles and MG42S for the close fight along the sand. 75 and 88mm guns in those concrete casemates for anything trying to land in force, more than capable of wrecking a landing craft or a tank at range. Mortars for indirect fire into the beach itself, and heavier coastal batteries further back, like the 4 long-barreled guns at Long-sur-Mer that could in theory hit ships and assembly areas well offshore before troops ever loaded into their boats. What Germany didn't have was eyes overhead. Allied air supremacy had already pushed the Luftwaffe out of the sky over the channel, so unlike a modern defense that layers in drones for constant observation, this one was fighting half blind above the waterline, no matter how well it was built below it. Even a well-built defense fails for predictable reasons, and the Atlantic Wall hit several of them. Mistake 1, the single defense. With most of the strength in that thin coastal crust, a breach at any one strong point had nothing meaningful behind it. Mistake 2, exposed flanks. Airborne troops, the American 82nd and 101st behind Utah Beach and the British 6th inland of the Orne, dropped past the coastal line entirely and attacked the defense from the side it wasn't built to face. Mistake 3, exposure to preemptive fire. Months of Allied aerial reconnaissance and resistance reporting meant most of these fixed positions had already been mapped in detail long before the invasion. Mistake 4, an army stretched thin, with the Eastern Front consuming manpower and material Germany didn't have to spare defending every mile of coastline in the west. Mistake 5, rigidity, and this is the big one. The Panzer reserves that could have crushed the landing in its first hours, including divisions like the 12th SS Panzer, sat idle waiting on authorization that had to come from the very top. Rommel was still traveling back from Germany. The officers on the ground weren't willing to act without him, or without Berlin's sign-off, and by the time approval worked through the chain, precious hours were already gone. Mistake 6, ignoring the air threat. Anything that moved on French roads in daylight was a target, which meant reinforcements that did get released still couldn't reach the coast at speed. So how did the actual battle unfold? Phase 1, detect. German radar and coastal observers did pick up activity that night, but Allied aircraft were dropping chaff and towing radar reflectors along other stretches of the coast at the same time, mimicking the radar return of a much larger invasion fleet. Parts of the defense spent the night watching a fleet that wasn't there while the real one closed in. Phase 2, disrupt. Allied bombers were supposed to flatten the beach defenses before the first landing craft arrived. At Omaha specifically, cloud cover pushed the bombing late and long, and most of it missed, leaving the strong points above that beach fully intact for what came next. Phase 3, fix. Exactly as the doctrine predicts, obstacles and machine gun fire pinned the first waves on the open sand, especially at Omaha, where troops were stuck in the kill zone for hours. Phase 4, dismantle. The interlocking fire plan worked almost too well here. This phase came closer to breaking the invasion than anything else that day. And Phase 5, the counterattack, the one most people miss. This is where the whole system was supposed to pay off, a reserve force smashing into an enemy that was disorganized, pinned down, and running low. It never came in strength. The panzer divisions that could have ended the invasion on the beach were still waiting on permission, and by the time some of them did move, they were doing it in daylight under Allied fighter bombers and within range of naval guns sitting just offshore, guns that could reach further inland than any German artillery could reach out to sea. Germany built almost every phase of this correctly. It lost on the one phase that depended on a decision nobody was allowed to make fast enough. That's the shape of how it actually happened. If breakdowns like this are useful, subscribing helps a lot. This channel is small, and it makes a real difference. Thanks for